So, you've finished your draft manuscript, but you're worried the story is a little bloated. Like that aunt who shows up in stretchy pants for every family get together, your manuscript is positively stuffed to its bursting point. Unlike that aunt, though, your manuscript holds on to its bloat, repels would-be readers with its magnitude because it can't very well release a diaphragmatic burp and ease the pressure. No, you, fine writer, will need to manually add a pressure release valve by editing out the bloat, paring back the book to its essence and message, and trusting your readers to handle the rest. A couple of weeks ago, I shared Word Count by Genre, a guide for novelists, which provides a high-level target for the word count of your novel based on genre expectations and reading age group. But figuring out how to de-bloat a manuscript, where to add that pressure relief valve, figuring out what to cut while retaining the foundations and leaving intact the soul of your story is the rub. Cut from the wrong spot and the theme may fall apart, or your characters may become little more than talking heads, or your readers may get lost in space-time. In this video, I'll share two major ways to edit a bloated manuscript for your readers so its magnitude stops repelling and begins attracting. Often, when reading through a draft manuscript for the first time, one major bloat factor sticks out. The story starts in the wrong spot. Starting the story in a wrong spot is a very common development issue, especially for new authors and those seasoned authors who are moving to new genres. A manuscript that begins in the wrong spot can put off agents, editors, and readers, which means your book won't sell. However, there are often many points at which your story could begin. So how do you choose? What makes one starting spot better than others? Mystery novels often answer this question best. Start the story when the action begins. Earlier this year, I read The Witch Elm by Tana French. More recently, Girls Like Us by Christina Alger. Both are mystery novels. Both are traditionally published by the Big Five. Both begin on page 1 with a change or intrigue of some kind. In The Witch Elm, readers begin to understand a little about the story when French writes, and of course there was the Ivy House. I don't think anyone could convince me, even now, that I was anything other than lucky to have the Ivy House. Of course, the Ivy House becomes the crime story's epicenter, and in the opening chapter, the protagonist is beaten nearly to death in a robbery gone wrong and ends up at the Ivy House to convalesce. How convenient! French even calls out the story beginning problem when she says, through the protagonist, that night, I know there are an infinite number of places to begin any story, and I'm well aware that everyone else involved in this one would take issue with my choice. I can just see the wry lift at the corner of Susanna's mouth, hear Leon's snort of pure derision. But I can't help it. For me, it all goes back to that night. In Girls Like Us, Alger kills off the protagonist's father before the story begins, forcing her protagonist to travel back to her childhood home for a funeral just in time for a horrific crime to occur. Cleverly, Alger alludes to the coming crime through an innocuous comment about the weather of all things, which sets an anticipatory tone for the opening of the novel. It's a calm day. They say a storm is coming, but for now the sky is cloudless. The men look on as my father's ashes blow away on the wind. While the events loosely described in the first chapters of The Witch Elm and Girls Like Us change something for their respective protagonists, the inciting incidents happen just a bit later and more formally jettison the protagonists into their stories. In The Witch Elm, the inciting incident is a cancer diagnosis and a frail uncle who needs live-in help. And the protagonist, who needs intense rehabilitative care following his bloody beating, is just the right person to take a long sabbatical out in the country. In Girls Like Us, the inciting incident is a discovery of a body near the wealthiest homes on the island, an investigation the protagonist happens to become wrapped in expressly because she's an FBI agent who just happens to be on the island paying respects to her father, who was a cop when the young woman was murdered. It's easy to begin your story in the wrong spot because there were things you needed to know about the protagonist's daily life before mucking it up. But there's a good chance your reader doesn't need all those details you've painstakingly written into your early draft. In fact, for the last several manuscripts I've read and assessed for development, cutting several opening chapters has been the running recommendation. So readers get to the inciting incident just a bit faster, and your novel holds their attention that much longer. If your manuscript is bloated, start the story just one event before the inciting incident, cutting everything that came before so your protagonist can be in the right place at the right time. If you haven't read The Witch Elm or Girls Like Us, know that both stories have but single narrator. There are no point of view shifts or additional perspective characters introduced, which is common in mysteries so as not to divulge too much information to the reader such that they unravel the mystery before the characters even have a chance to realize they're in a mystery. Having multiple perspective characters in novels makes sense when the narrators are peripheral to the events, observing and interacting with the hero without actually being the hero. High fantasy stories often include multiple perspective characters, for example, because it's the combined goings-on of the various characters which creates the story's messages. And multiple perspectives work well when the characters can't possibly share experiences because they're in different locations or speak different languages or exist at different times in history. One novel that comes to mind is All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, the perspectives of which move back and forth between a French blind girl and a German orphan boy who's been handpicked for the war effort. The two protagonists are, figuratively or literally, battered by World War II, and both live in different towns at the story's opening. The characters never cross paths except once toward the end when briefly they meet and part again. Yet their two perspectives, one of a soldier working for the Axis powers and one of an Allied operative, showcase the breadth and depth of the war experience. Yet, I've also read and assessed plenty of novels that use far too many perspective voices, such that the true hero becomes totally lost, or certain perspectives are skimmed simply because they don't move the story enough. For many stories, especially contemporary stories, the reader only needs one narrator, one perspective through which to experience the story's events, one character to follow and learn from, one character to which to compare themselves and what they would have done were they in the character's shoes. If your manuscript is bloated and you have multiple perspective characters, one quick way to add a pressure relief valve is to cull the perspective chapters of one or more characters. Editing a bloated manuscript starts with careful assessment of major development factors, including starting the story in the right place and making sure the perspective characters chosen are appropriate for relaying necessary information to your readers. If you still find your manuscript is larger than you'd like, but you've already overhauled most of the big picture stuff, you may find a careful language edit may help you tuck and tighten. Check out these related videos to help you wrangle your language for concision and clarity. 3 tips for tight writing, line edit like a pro, here's how, and remove filters and strengthen your fiction. And for more big picture analysis, check out these videos to help you conceptualize. Telling the two-sided story. Story is goal, motivation, and conflict. Plot turning points in story development. Or check out the POV Deep Dive series. So, how do you de-bloat your manuscript? Share your tips below and let me know what other topics you have burning in your noodler so I can write a great article for you. Happy writing.